All right, so you guys wanted to know more about relationships and marriage in Japan. And, we'd love to deep dive. So today we're taking a look at how people in Japan find love and tie the knot.
We found this really cool guide that covers pretty much everything, from the first date to saying, I do.
Yeah, so basically we're going to break it down for you point out some interesting stuff along the way so you can really get a feel for how it all works, the cultural side of things.
Exactly, like what makes it uniquely Japanese, right?
Okay, let's start with how people in Japan actually meet each other romantically.
Well, you've got the traditional way, omiai, which is like formal matchmaking, often set up through agencies. Sometimes even families get involved.
Oh, wow. So it's kind of like a really structured approach.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because it still exists today. Like it hasn't completely disappeared with all the modern stuff.
So it's like tradition meets the 21st century.
Exactly. And speaking of modern stuff, there's kankatsu, which basically means marriage hunting. And this is actually a huge industry in Japan. Like we're talking billions of yen.
Wow, marriage hunting. It sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, it can be. It's like people are actively seeking out marriage, through parties, agencies, even online platforms.
I guess it makes sense if people are really focused on their careers, they might want to be more proactive about finding a partner.
Right. It's like being intentional about starting a family and all that.
So we've got the traditional omiai, the super modern konkatsu,
Yeah.
anything in between.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's Gokon, which are these fun group line dates.
Also, kind of like a more relaxed way to meet people.
Yeah, exactly. Usually friends or coworkers set them up so it's not as serious as omiai.
Just a chance to see if there are any sparks.
Right. And then, of course, you've got the whole online dating scene.
Like the Tinders and Bumbles of the world?
Exactly. All the familiar names.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that people in Japan tend to move from online to offline pretty quickly.
Oh, so it's not all about endless texting.
Not really. I mean, the whole point is to actually meet up in person and see if there's a connection.
Okay, so let's say you've met someone either through omiai or a dating app or whatever. What happens next?
Well, the dating scene in Japan is a little different than what you might be used to in the West.
How so?
It's less about casual dating and more about figuring out if you're both on the same page from the beginning.
Oh, so like defining the relationship early on.
Exactly. And there's this really important concept called kokuhaku.
Kokuhaku, what's that?
It's like a confession of love, basically.
Oh, wow. So it's like making things official.
Pretty much, it usually happens around the third date, and it's a very direct way of saying, I want to be in a serious relationship with you.
Yeah, so no beating around the bush.
Not really. It's all about being upfront about your feelings.
I guess that avoids any misunderstandings down the line.
Exactly. And once the kokuhaku is accepted, the relationship is considered official.
Wow, so it's a pretty big deal.
Definitely, it sets the tone for everything that comes after.
Okay, so let's talk about dating activities.
Hmm.
What do couples typically do in Japan?
Early dates are usually pretty short and sweet, like going for a meal or coffee.
Keeping it simple.
Yeah, but as things progress, couples might go to theme parks or events or, longer outings.
I've heard that planning ahead is super important in Japan.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Everyone's got busy schedules, so it's not like you can just spontaneously decide to meet up.
Makes sense. And what about anniversaries? Are those a big thing?
Interestingly enough, birthdays are actually more emphasized in Japan.
Really?
Yeah, but wedding anniversaries are still important, especially the big milestones.
I bet there's some cool traditional gifts associated with those.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But we can save that for another deep dive.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little and talk about the cultural stuff. How do Japanese cultural norms play into all of this?
Well, one of the biggest things is communication, right? It's often very indirect in Japan.
Oh, I've heard about that, like the whole reading the air thing.
Yeah, kuki oyomu. It's all about picking up on subtle cues and understanding what's not being said.
So you have to be really tuned in.
Exactly. And you might not hear a direct no, even if someone disagrees with you.
Wow, so it's a whole different way of communicating.
It is, and it definitely takes some getting used to.
What about gender roles? Are those still pretty traditional in Japan?
They are, especially among older generations. Men are expected to take the lead, women are more reserved.
But I imagine things are changing with younger people.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's definitely a shift towards more egalitarian views.
Which makes sense. I mean, it's 2025.
Exactly. And speaking of cultural values, harmony is super important in Japan.
Was.
Yeah, it's this idea of maintaining positive relationships, avoiding conflict.
So that indirect communication style really ties into that.
Exactly. It's all about keeping things harmonious.
I've also heard about this concept of han and tateme.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Han is your true feelings, what you really think, and Mei is your public face.
So like what you show to the world.
Exactly. And sometimes they can be totally different.
So you might say one thing, but actually feel something else.
Yeah, it's all about maintaining that harmony we were talking about.
Wow, that must be tricky to navigate.
It can be, but it's a really important part of Japanese culture.
Okay, last question. What about PDA? Is that common in Japan?
Not really. Holding hands is usually okay, especially in cities.
But anything more than that is a no-no.
Pretty much, it's just not part of the culture.
Makes sense. So to wrap things up, Japanese relationships and marriage are this fascinating mix of tradition and modern influences.
Exactly. From omiai to konkatsu, from kokuhaku to kukiyoyomu, it's a really unique landscape.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is just how much culture shapes the way people connect and build relationships.
Right. It's a reminder that there are so many different ways of doing things, and what might seem strange to us is perfectly normal in another culture.
Absolutely. And on that note, here's something to think about. Given how important reading the air is in Japan and how significant that clear intention of kokuhaku is, how might those cultural nuances influence the way we form connections even outside of Japan, like even in our own lives?
That's a great question, something to ponder.
Yeah, food for thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.